Morning, afternoon, LG here. We're going to be doing a breakout lecture for session 11. This is section review, chapter 1, section 1, and we're going to be talking about how farming changed the world, specifically the Americas, I guess. And we'll pick it up right in the middle of your lecture notes. And seriously, read your lecture notes, read your lecture notes, read your lecture notes. All right. You're not going to get the same value out of these breakout lectures if you don't come to these things with the proper background information. And that's what you get by reading those lecture notes. So seriously, read those notes. Back to what I was saying here. Farming is going to change everything. Because without farming, two things can't happen in the world without farming, or the discovery of farming. Cultures cannot develop, cannot grow, and civilizations are not born, cannot be born. Now let's define culture. All right, let's start with a simple definition of culture. It's mentioned in your book and it's defined at the very end, I believe the last page of the section. Culture, simply defined, means a person's way of life. Now let me expand on this simple definition. Your culture is your way of life that includes all these systems up here, that includes communities, that includes families and government and religion and education and technology. These systems here are the building blocks of culture and civilization. Now I got a science question for you. What do all plants need in order to survive? I'll ask it again. What do plants need in order to survive? Two things. Top of your head, water is one, and the other, obviously, is sunlight. Water and sunlight, right, in order for plants to survive. Now, let me ask you this. How do wild plants get their water and sunlight? Wild plants. What wild plants means they grow outside, right? How do they get their water and sunlight? Well, obviously, because they grow outside, they get it from nature, right? They get it from the sun. They get it when it rains, but that's how wild plants survive. But what about potted plants, an indoor plant, maybe a plant that I keep on my desk in the classroom or near my desk? How does a potted plant get its water and sunlight? Again, these are indoor, they're not outside. So how do they survive? The answer? From a person, right? A potted plant relies on a human being to give it attention, to give it care, to make sure they're getting water, to make sure they're given enough sunlight. And tell me, what's going to happen to this potted plant if it doesn't get that human care and human attention? What's going to happen to this plant? Well, obviously, it's going to die, right? Well, culture and civilization are like potted plants, excuse me. In order for these systems up here to grow and develop properly, they need human attention and care. But remember, before farming was discovered, human beings, people were nomads, right? And when you're a nomad, right? When you're a nomad and there's only one thing on your mind when you live the life of a nomad, only one thing on your mind. It begins with the letter S. Can you think, well, what's that one thing that nomads give all their attention to, give all their care to? It begins with an S. You guessed it, survival, right? Your mind focuses only on that when you're a nomad. Every second of every day, it's survive, survive, survive. I mean, think about the life of a nomad, always in a new place, right? Always facing new dangers. Imagine trying to raise a family in that kind of a life. Your wife gets pregnant, your grandpa gets sick. But can you stop moving? Can you stop moving and give your wife and grandpa some time to rest and get better? Can you stop? No, you can't. You have to keep on moving. You have to keep on trying to find food. Or else what? What happens if you stop moving? Everybody dies. Your whole group dies, right? Sorry, grandpa. When this is your way of life here, right? Oops, sorry, get rid of that. When this is your way of life, all right? When this is your way of life, these things over here don't get the stuff they need to grow and to develop because there's no time for them, right? Because our mind as a nomad is only locked in on this. All right. And I actually, before I end this, I do want to read the last paragraph, the last section, the last paragraph of this section, which is this here. Listen, and I'll read it. Let me blow it up. Agriculture changed the lives of these early people. And by the way, agriculture is just a big fancy word for farming. That's all that means. Agriculture changed the lives of these early people and led to the birth of a new culture, a way of life of a particular group of people. Rather than move from place to place in search of food, the people who farmed were able to settle down. Remember that. They formed communities and developed common customs, beliefs, artistic styles, and ways of protecting themselves. Over time, the many different groups of people living in the Americas developed distinctive cultures. So let me wrap this up, all right? When farming was discovered, thanks to farming, human beings could finally settle down. They could finally stop, excuse me, they could stop and settle down, all right? They could stop moving and they could pay more attention to these things over here, right? Now human beings can form strong communities. Now humans can form strong, healthy families, right? I mean, take a break, grandpa. Sit down, get better, don't die. Now humans can think about new ideas for government and religion and education. Now humans can focus on inventing things that could make their lives better and easier. And they can do all these other things now because their minds aren't just focused on what anymore solely? On survival, right? And this is how civilizations are born. And it would not have happened in the Americas without people first being able to settle down. And people could not settle down in the Americas until they learned how to farm. You think farming wasn't important? Farming changed the Americas. Farming changed the world.